Welcome to Talent Hub Talk. I am Ben Duncan, and this is a place where prominent and inspirational figures from both the local ANZ and global Salesforce Ohana share their stories. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Flow Republic. Flow Republic is the elite Salesforce Academy, helping architects all over the world to realize their goal of becoming a Salesforce certified technical architect. The success that architects are having with Flow Republic is incredible. So if you are on your journey to CTA, then I highly recommend checking out flowrepublic.com to understand how they can help you. In today's episode, I am joined by Poonam Keswani, a Salesforce CTA and Senior Manager for Accenture. Poonam recently became the first non-Salesforce employee to become a Salesforce CTA in India. We unpack her career, how she has progressed at different stages, and look at the impact COVID has had on the onshore-offshore model. Poonam talks us through how she first became interested in pursuing the Salesforce CTA, who inspired her, and how she explained the challenge and commitment required to her family. Poonam then explains how it felt to receive the results and how her loved ones reacted to the news that she had passed. I really hope you enjoy the episode, and if you do, please do subscribe for future episodes that are coming through. Poonam, thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so much for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And look, first and foremost, congratulations. We'll cover this, but on your massive achievement recently, you've just received the news recently that you passed the CTA.
That's right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So we'll cover the whole journey. But how did it feel? How do you feel now? Are you still kind of on cloud nine, or are you? Is it business as usual yet?
Yeah, the first few days was cloud nine, of course. The reaction that I got and the response that I got from all my colleagues, my leadership team at Accenture, my friends, my family, I was thrilled, and so were they. But yes, it has now sunk in, and as every day passes, I feel a responsibility as well to do justice to the title that I have achieved with a lot of hard work.
Yeah, 100%. And we're going to explore that hard work, but I guess that kind of leads you to being on the show as well and talking about your journey to inspire others, which I'm sure you will. So yeah, really keen to unpack all of that. But I'd like to start at the beginning. So we're going to get to where you are now, but looking back to your early days, and actually as a child, I guess, did you have any grand career aspirations? Did you kind of know where you wanted to go and what you wanted to pursue?
So, at different stages in life, I wanted to do different things. So, as growing up, I used to love kids. I still love kids. So, I wanted to be a preschool teacher because I love telling stories, which sort of still helps me both at work and at home. But I realized that probably that's not fitting in, and then there was this teenage phase when I was super patriotic, and I wanted to do something from India, and I wanted to join the foreign services. And somehow that didn't go well as well, and I landed in, say, in engineering with a job again that followed on the same path.
So what was it about engineering that caught your attention then? What inspired you down that route?
So I was always very good in math and analytics. So that was my natural choice, and I used to probably do very well in maths and not do that well in languages. So that sort of drifted me towards taking something which had a mathematical touch to it, and then it programming came naturally, and that's when everything sort of fitted in. And in India, typically you don't get you are given two options to pick whether you want to be an engineer or you want to be a doctor, and doctor was not something that I ever wanted to be. My mother is a doctor, and I could never imagine myself waking up at 2 a.m. for somebody else who is sick, right? So yeah, it engineering it was for me then.
That's interesting because I think pretty much everyone that I've had on the podcast that is from India has said the same thing about being an engineer or a doctor. One day there must be people that didn't pursue one of those routes, right? Because
Yes,
I guess
are.
everyone I have on the podcast, I've had a doctor who
Right.
ended up going into the Salesforce world. And then obviously everyone else has really been engineers because they're in the IT world. So
Right.
yeah, it's interesting to kind of get that dynamic and hear that kind of everyone does feel that they have those two options.
Yeah, so it's changing now, Ben. So if you ask me as a parent now, I wouldn't probably want my kids to be given just two options, right? I would want them to find out what they like and what they want to do. But so my father is an engineer, my mother is a doctor, and what you do is you look up to your parents, right?
Hmm.
And that's what you sort of land up into. And even in the social circle, we didn't have anybody who was not a doctor or not an engineer, so you are not exposed to that kind of career options. But as things are changing, with things being more global now, kids are exposed to a lot of things, so are parents. I believe there's this change that we will see in the upcoming, like in the current generation. I see a lot of my friends kids picking up career choices which were not natural to us earlier.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it will be definitely be interesting to see. But I mean, it's great that that obviously engineering was a favorite of a lot of people, because we've seen some amazing talent, especially in Australia, that has come through that path. And
Sure.
yeah, the Salesforce market has benefited from it for sure. And you mentioned that programming you felt came quite naturally to you, which is
Yes,
obviously
yes.
not doesn't come naturally to everyone. So when you
Yeah.
started your career as a developer. Um, did the job come naturally? Like, did you progress quickly as a developer? Was programming? I guess programming came naturally, but actually working day to day as a developer and learning the all round job.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved all of it, and yeah, I've been lucky. I progressed well. I was like I grew from a project to project, from a project where I was doing a junior developer to another project where I was probably a team lead or a tech lead. I progressed well, and yeah, all that helped, right? Like, because I used to really enjoy working or programming, and then my first organization was Infosys, where I also got a chance to travel to US and work for a year. It definitely was a learning curve sometimes, because when I traveled to US, there was a cultural difference. I was away from home for the first time, that far away. But I've been lucky to be surrounded by such good colleagues and friends, like colleagues who became friends, that
Hmm.
it all sort of went well.
Yeah, nice. So you started as a Java developer.
That's right. Yes, a
So
Java developer.
can you think back to when you first started programming? Were there certain things that you, um, I guess, like professional, not programming skills, but things you
Mhm.
learnt to do well that you still do today? So things that you've kind of carried throughout your career as to kind of help you get to where you are today.
There are two things that never left my side, right? Even back then, if I knew something, I had to get myself certified. So I even back then I got my Sun certification for Java. The first and the second level, I got both of them. So if I knew something, I had to get certified. I guess that thing sort of followed into my next transition of Salesforce as well. And I would not usually go to sleep without having something which was not working, or if there was a bug, or if the flow was not coming through, or I had to solve it. So probably I couldn't sleep well, I would say. So that stayed, and it does still stay with me. That even after, you know, being 17 years in this industry, I still feel hands on. Like, I get it. I want to be hands on, and I probably will always be hands on.
Was there ever any pressure to not be hands on? Because obviously, like you mentioned, you've taken on leadership roles in the past. Did you ever kind
Yes.
of, because some people go down that management path and lose the technical skill set, right? So did you ever kind of get pushed into that direction?
Yes, of course. You that probably landed up again to a stage where I had to put that extra time to ensure I still get my hands on while doing what was required for my role. There was, but I sort of tried to get a balance of few things, because even in Salesforce, things change so often, and there is so much to learn that I had to draw a line somewhere, right? Like, that I cannot go beyond this, because there's only 24 hours and there's only limited time I can give to work and myself. So yeah, I drew that line. I was forced, but sometimes for key things, I would still want to get it done my way. But then I left a few which were probably not important, and which I could delegate, and which I could get some other expert to help me with. So
Hmm.
yes, I sort of found that balance.
So how did you come to work in Salesforce? Obviously, starting as a Java developer, like how did that progress into being a Salesforce professional?
So I believe again I got lucky. After my stint with Infosys, my Infosys managers had started their own company, which was Access Technologies, which was a partner, um, primarily doing only Salesforce work. And I got recruited with them, and I got introduced to Salesforce. I had obviously heard about the platform and cloud computing, but the transition was easier because I knew and there was a familiarity with the people working there, and I cannot thank them enough for taking that dive into Salesforce and like bringing me on board as well.
And your first role in Salesforce was that development as well, so straight in as a Salesforce developer.
Yeah, yeah. So when you work for a smaller partner and when you're growing your the company, you play a lot of roles, right? I played a developer, I played a say a team lead, a project lead, an offshore coordinator, or say even sometimes pre-sales, and even remedy force consultant. I did remedy force also for a good 1 year. So yeah, I did a lot of things, and that sort of also helped me to understand what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and gauge what I really like to do. um, and yes, that's again the fact that I always wanted to be hands on, even then, helped me because I would like go in there and get it done and like help my developers who were working with me. So yes, that sort of also shaped up a lot of things that where I have reached today.
Yeah, and I know some of those roles obviously were technical, but some of the roles you performed at Arxis, were stretching into management and project management,
Yes,
and
yes.
not. And I think a lot of people would be hesitant to do that, right? They would say, "No, look, I'm a developer. I only want to code," or I want to be a team leader, or like they wouldn't necessarily experience that. So, do you have any regrets about broadening into other areas, or was all of it beneficial?
Absolutely not. All of it was beneficial, right? And that time, there was no there like obviously we had roles which were divided in the company or in Access that we were working for, but we had this sense to make it work for Access, right? Like because we had this a certain relationship with the leadership, with the management, and everybody who we were recruiting, we were very close to them. So we had this sense of getting it done rather than putting a label to it, or saying that you're doing this. So we just like sort of everybody got together, a big team, a small team, and we just did it.
Yeah, yeah, nice. And that must be amazing for the founders of the business to have a team all pulling in the same direction and willing to kind of sacrifice and do the right thing for the business.
Yes, I'm sure it was. Yes.
So what was it about when you landed in the technical architect role? What was it about that role that you realized at that point that you'd found the role that you wanted to do?
So Salesforce has had come up with all these domain certifications, right? Back in 2015 and 16, I believe, 16, I believe. And I had few technical mentors in Access as well who were also looking for the CTA path and studying all these concepts. And I had just come out of a big project where we did a large data modeling and data migration. So data architect certification that time came sort of again naturally, and I said, let me just go for it. And in 2017, I cleared my application architect, both the exams, and yeah. So that time, I knew I like it, but I didn't know that I like it that much, that I want to give it that much time and that much effort. But I guess one of the key turning points in the fact that I want to be a CTA was at Dreamforce 2018 when I attended the architect boot camp. And when you look at that pyramid that Salesforce has drawn, you look at a CTA as somebody who's at pinnacle of knowledge and who's probably not reachable for you, right? Because you are at bottom, you're not on top. So when I met few CTAs at the architect boot camp, um, I felt they were so approachable. They had so much knowledge to give, and they were so ready to share everything. They share their experiences, share and just they were extremely reachable, and I just loved that fact. I felt that I want to be somebody like that, who is extremely thorough, but at the same time extremely human and approachable. I remember asking stupid questions in that class, right? But they never got offended. They went to your level and explained it to me, and I just loved it. And I just wanted to get the same feeling from, like, do the same thing for myself, so that I could do that to somebody else as well.
And did you ever doubt that you could achieve it? Like at the beginning, because I'm sure as you go through the journey, right, you study,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
everyone must doubt that they can achieve it when they're studying because of the amount of studying. You would just be overwhelmed, right? But at the beginning, did you think I can do this, or did you have doubts that you would go down that journey and succeed?
Of course, I had doubts, right? I used to see so many people failing around me. So, and every LinkedIn post probably that would come of a CTA would talk about a retake or a, of 3 years of study, of 2 years of study. And I would always think to myself that time that, am I ready for that kind of time? Am I, like, can I do that much? Can I give that much of time? Like, the last time I studied for an exam like of this caliber or this amount of study was, say, probably back in engineering, when you had to get things done. Right now, all Salesforce certifications that I had given were shorter, like for a month or 2 months, max 2 months. I didn't know whether I was ready for that much of amount of time, and whether I could ever be able to accept a failure was another doubt that I had that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all what I can look back right now. I'm just glad I could clear it in the first attempt.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we'll explore how you went through that. But just briefly, in terms of you've studied through the COVID period, so obviously there was
Yes.
and a lot has changed in the world since then. Obviously, being in lockdown and stuff gives you time, I guess, that you might not have had
Yeah.
before. But how has your role changed, or how was the dynamic with offshore, onshore, and the perception, I guess, of those roles and the responsibilities that are divided up? Like, has your role as a technical architect changed due to the models kind of changing due to COVID?
Yeah, most certainly. There has been a lot of change with COVID, with everything, everybody being from home. You don't have those kind of demarcation that a certain role needs to be onshore to be completed, or to be done well. Probably, we are seeing a lot of people, a lot of customers now asking for certain roles also to be done from offshore, which probably because they have realized that it's now. It's a balance, right? There are certain roles which obviously can only be done at onshore, but then there are a lot of things which can also be done at offshore. And yes, there is a lot of change in perception that yes, certain roles can also be now done from offshore.
Hmm.
But at the same time, while I say this, there is also some customers or some industries also have security and privacy
Of course.
considerations, which sort of has to be taken care as well. But yes, there is definitely a change in perception now.
Hmm. Yeah, it must have been an interesting change, because like I think there's a blurred line more so than ever now between onshore and offshore, right? There's no real, if everyone's working from
Correct.
home,
Correct.
like unless there is a security element or a data element and things, why does it
Right.
matter where someone's based? It should surely just be purely about capability and skill set.
That's right. That's right.
And it will be interesting to see how that evolves over time, because I think some companies still have restrictions around if they're hiring for a full-time permanent employee, they're hiring
Hmm.
still within a radius of their office, right? But actually there's a whole big
Right.
world out there where there's some amazing skills, and the right person could be sat in India or another location.
That's right. It's sad they are limiting themselves, I would say.
Hmm. So when you decided you wanted to be a CTA, were there any other people that kind of inspired you to actually get started with the journey and start progressing to studying and putting a plan in place?
Yeah, so as I told, there were two CTAs I met at Dreamforce. Then I got my first chance to work with a CTA again with Accenture. So from Axis, I moved to Accenture. It was again a conscious decision because I wanted to work for bigger and enterprise customers, and at the same time, I had some location constraints as well. And yes, Accenture worked perfectly from that perspective. I got a lot of exposure to big enterprise customers, bigger digital transformation, like bigger teams. I particularly worked with one of the CTS, Kevin Mehta, in I think 2020, and I worked with him on again a big project. And same thing, right? There was an extreme thoroughness in whatever he said and how he delivered it, and I was obviously used to admire him a lot. And I remember setting up a call with him and asking him, like, do you think I can become one? And he said, most certainly, like, from a solutioning perspective, I don't see any problem. You are right there and everything. It's just you got to tune yourself or fine tune yourself. And that's the first time I heard somebody tell me that I could be a CTA. Till then, I used to tell myself that yes, I could be a CTA. But that was the first time that somebody told me that yes, you can be a CTA. I have seen that in you. And I guess that gave me a lot of confidence, a lot of confidence.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that must be an amazing feeling, just having that, reassurance, I guess, that it's not just you.
Exactly.
You haven't misled yourself. Other people see that potential in you as well.
Yes, indeed it was.
So I know you've got two children, and
Yes.
I saw on your post when you announced that you'd passed a bit about them. So I know obviously it takes a lot of time and commitment. So how did you explain that to your family? That mum, I'm going to be committing to this. I'm going to need X amount of time and hours, and I might not be able to commit to every after school thing and things like that. So how do you kind of make that clear to the family as to how much you have to commit?
So I think between me and my husband, that part was very clear because I was thinking about it for a really long time, right? As I told you, since 2018. I had my second baby in 2019, so things sort of derailed a bit. But that constant thought was there in the back of my mind. So my husband was always like, whenever you feel you want to do it, I'm on board, right? Like, because you've been sort of working for it for such a long time. um, COVID definitely helped because obviously the social life was sort of reduced, and it's easier to still find time for to study. And the other thing that worked well, that due to COVID we moved to my hometown, and I had support from my parents. So my parents totally aced the grandparent game, and they sort of came on board and were able to help whenever I needed. So yeah, that sort of really helped me to get the team, like, to have my backup, right? Like, if say I am studying or I'm doing a mock, then I know my parents will take care of my kids. My husband had to travel a lot for work, so then again, getting my parents on board was very, very important. My younger one doesn't get much of what mommy does, right? She just feels that I just play on the laptop, probably because she has a toy laptop too. But the elder one gets it, so she feels that yes, mommy's going to give an exam. There is, like, because she also has some assessments and stuff like that, right? um, Probably what was difficult for her to understand was that why does this exam take so much time? Like, why is it, why do you have to lock the door? Why do you have to talk so much? So that part I had to sort of explain her that there are some people that I have to talk to and explain things. So yeah, I guess one of the cutest response was from them when, after my exam, to get the result, right? For me, the result would come at night, because it comes from San Francisco and they release it probably in the night, and I would probably just see it early in the morning. So she would wake up and then after a few minutes would realize, has your result come? Has your result come? So, and I would, like, it took 3 weeks to get the results. I would be like, no, still mommy's waiting, mommy's waiting.
Cute.
So yeah, yeah.
So was she as excited as you were when the results finally came through?
Oh yes, very, very excited. There's a funny story behind that, right? While I told her that I'm gonna get a fancy certificate, my husband told her, her father told her that, once mommy gets this exam right and when she passes it, she will be walking 2 feet above the ground, like, So then the moment I told her I got my result, and then she looked down, and like, you're still walking on the ground.
That's brilliant.
So yeah, it was cute to have that reaction from her. Yeah.
And what about your parents? Because I know a lot of people, like broader
Yeah.
families, struggle to understand what Salesforce even
Yeah.
is. So, and to commit, like, do they even understand how big an achievement it is in terms of like how many people in the world have achieved it, right? So it must be incredible for them, but do they know how incredible that actually is?
So, not at first. I probably just told them that it's very hard to clear it. That's what I told them. But when it sort of rolled, when the f- then when they co- so my results came at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. That's when I read it. When I woke up to wake up my kids, that's when I read it. So I called them and told them that the results are out, and I couldn't believe they had tears in their eyes. They came driving home to my house, and they were like, they were all so emotional. And probably at that point I realized that I have just not made it big for myself, I have made it so big for everybody around me, right? I was joking with my parents that you have never been so emotional when I was getting married and, like, going away from you. This is the first time you have got, like, you've had this rush of emotions. But yes, I'm just glad also for them, because I owe a lot of this to them, that I could do it. And I made my kids pray to God as well. I've done all that. I used to tell my younger daughter, because in India they say that if you tell a small kid would go and pray, God listens faster. Okay, so I
Okay.
would go and tell my younger one that to tell God that mommy should get a full pass. Mommy should get a full pass. So, so I didn't want to even leave the doubt of a partial pass or a section retake. I would say just go and say mommy should get a full pass. So yeah, it was yeah. I look back, I feel I was silly, but but yeah, it all sort of made easy to explain it to them what it was.
Yeah, definitely. And what was the best piece of advice you got on the journey to CTA? Like, if you could kind of think back to all of the people you spoke to, and
Yeah.
obviously with Flow Republic and Seb and Johan, like what would really stand out as the best piece of advice?
Um, Practice. Just practice. That's it. Like everybody, Sebastian, Johan, everybody would say the same thing: practice, practice. Talk to people, see what others like. Whatever you have decisions say you have made, or certain solutions you have come up with, discuss it with people, and just like practice. um, they have been extremely supportive and phenomenal, I would say, because the kind of results that Flow Republic has got, both of them are very good in what they do, and they are excellent coaches, right?
Hmm.
So if I would probably pick a phone with Seb, and he would know that that I'm struggling with something, or there is something that I would want to talk about. So and he would calm you down, and give you some tips to not just study, but also to how to work it out mentally, right? So yes, all that helped. And I can whenever I look at Johan, I start doing my breathing techniques, because that's one thing that he's taught all of us, that imagine you're doing such a big multi-millionaire $1 million project for somebody. You have a lot of responsibility, you have to own your solution and talk it out. So yeah, it was great working with them.
So was there an area? So you obviously you didn't want a partial pass or a section retake. Like that was. Do you like? How do you think you'd have reacted had you done that after all of? If you obviously this is hypothetical because it didn't happen, but after all of
um,
that hard work and the studying, how do you think you personally would have reacted if you did have to do another part?
I don't want to think about it, Ben. I really don't want to think about it. It's hard. I know people who have done it. Um, what I would have done, probably would have cut myself off for few weeks, for a week or two, to just get myself to on board to the fact that I want to do it again or not,
Hmm.
and to, like, to push myself that much. And then probably would have again gone back to my coaches and see how could they guide me further. um so yeah, that's probably what I would have done.
Yeah, I mean, because I've spoken to lots of people that have had like a section retake, or the one that I find incredible is the people that foul and then they straight back on and want to do it again, because I
Yeah.
think that it must be so draining and exhausting, and then to say, right, I fouled, but I'm going to give it another shot. It's just yeah, fair play to people that can be that resilient and just willing to put their life on hold again to restudy and go over it all again.
Yeah, yeah, I can totally understand that feeling, Ben. It's like it's there in your head, and it's not like that closure is not there, right? To something that you picked up and you did not complete it despite committing to it, right?
Hmm.
I can totally sense what they would probably be feeling when such a thing would have, like a partial pass or a full retake would have occurred to them or happened to them. And I, right after being my CTA as well, I'm always ready to help people who are on their journey, because I know it's been so hard, right?
Hmm.
In my journey, a lot of CTAs have helped me, right? I reached out to so many people during before my boards to help me with judge my mock, or just to get some advice, right? And the architect community is so amazing. Everybody is ready to help. Giving you know 2 hours of your time is not easy. People I've seen, like the gang of four, they give their weekend times, right? It's not easy. They are still committed to CTA after getting through the whole journey. So there are some amazing architects out there who are always ready to help. And just hope that I'll be one of them as well, which who's probably will be happy to help people on their journey, because I know it's incredibly hard.
Hmm. And obviously, you've got the results. I know that what the morning was like in terms of telling your family. But now that it has sunk in a little bit in terms of what you've achieved, can you acknowledge how much you're now going to inspire others? And I guess I believe that you're the first non-Salesforce employee in India to have achieved the CTA. So
Yeah.
there's thousands of other people now that are looking at you and thinking, I can do it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. I get that feeling I take that as a sense of responsibility on me as well, because I have had a lot of people reach out to me to tell me that they have been inspired by what I have achieved, and they would want to also take up that challenge up for them. And in my own way, I can, if I have inspired them, I'm just glad I did it. And if all of them, they need any help from me, say if they want to talk about it or anything, I'm always there for like to talk with them or reach out. In fact, even within Accenture, we are trying to motivate people to get them on board on the similar journey, to see how the people who have achieved this, or people who are on the path, there are a few others from Accenture also attempting. So how we can help the others as well, so we get the second round of CTAs from India.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be many more. I think it's incredible now to see Accenture investing in and helping bring people through with courses like Flow Republic and yeah, it will be amazing to see things really take off in India and more CTAs popping up and also not necessarily having to move to other countries to achieve these kind of goals. I think that's a
Right.
real standout thing for me because
Right.
you've been able to achieve that by working on big projects for and live with your family locally in
Right.
your hometown.
Right. Right. So again, COVID also helped there, where you can now take the board virtually, which earlier was not possible, right? The virtual board only started off late during the COVID period. Earlier, it used to be only an in-person exam. So yes, everything sort of is aligned, and I hope to get a lot of more CTS from India.
Hmm. And if you could give one piece of advice, not to other CTA aspiring CTAs, because I know the advice would be practice. But if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, at the beginning of your career, with what you've achieved now, perhaps, what would you say to yourself to ensure you were going to go down this path again and achieve the goals and outcomes that you have?
Yeah, so if I look back, there are many times when I would tell myself, right, that no, no, I'll not do it now. I'll probably do it later. The time is not right, right? Maybe 6 months down the line, it'll get better and stuff like that. Like between a lot of roles that you play, a wife, say a daughter, a mother, and a lot of other things, right? You may feel that no, it's not the right time right now. Something I've realized now, there is never a good or a bad time. It's you who makes it good, right? If it's you who is going to make it the right time for you, you like don't decide things on what's the right time for me. It's you who has to make it right. That's the only probably thing that I would probably change and give advice to to me as a younger self, and
Hmm.
probably to everybody else as well. It's you who is the differentiating factor to make that right for yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear more about your journey, and yeah, I'm very excited for our listeners to hear this and obviously inspire many other people on their journeys. And if anyone does want to reach out and just ask some questions or pick your
Sure.
brains or get some advice, where's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn would be the best place to find me. I'm always available there, and I respond to people who ever want to reach out to me. So yes,
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
thank you, Ben, for having me. It's been a pleasure also to talk to you. Till now, I have always seen other people talking to you. It's sort of also surreal for me to be on this platform with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the chat, and if you did, please make sure you have subscribed for future episodes that are coming through. I would also be very grateful if you would consider leaving a review on your chosen podcast platform, as 5-star reviews will help us to reach more trailblazers from across the world. I look forward to sharing another episode with you soon, and thanks again.